to this time of remembering and celebrating the life of Burnett Thompson, who was a very important part of ROM's history and the lives of a lot of people who've been through ROM. I unfortunately never had the chance to meet him, but I heard a lot of stories about him, and I look forward to getting to know him more through tonight's event. So my husband, Boyan, who's the current director of ROM, will be joining us in a few minutes, and he'll have something to share later on. But for now, I want to hand things over to Tikumir. Go ahead, Tikumir.
Thank you, Rachel. Really, it is a beautiful pleasure that we have this opportunity. It would be a wonderful thing to have something in person, but the conditions are such that at this moment we are still at different places, not really traveling much. And I think this is appropriate way, under the circumstances, that we gather together, have like a little reunion, a ROM reunion, around the person of Burnett Thompson. Because Burnett Thompson is one of those servant leaders, truly, I believe so, from my experience and everyone who knows him, who has given his, I would say, senior years, the most mature years of his life, to young people of the Balkans, Southeast Europe, not only in the Balkans, but much wider. When I think of the people that his life has impacted, that have come to Rome, they don't only come from the Balkans, they come from Armenia, they come from Turkey, from Cyprus, even from Iraq, and from many other places. And I think it's fitting that we take the time and share and remember and recall those beautiful moments that we had with Burnett Thompson. I know that some of those who have become a part of Rome in a later year might only know him by name and some pictures, because he was actively coming to our region, to Rome activities, and visiting since between 2001 and 2012. 2012 was the year when we had one of the big reunions in Ohrid in Macedonia, and that was his last visit. Not because he wouldn't want to come afterwards, but simply due to his health conditions, limitations, he could not travel after that time. So he was intensely with us every year between 2001 and 2012. And he has been just as much with us ever since, because he enjoyed being in touch with people from the Rome community practically up to the last days of his life. He would always talk about them. Even when I had one of the conversations with Burnett over the telephone, which was just a few days before he passed away, he remembered Rome. It seems that Rome was one of those important things in his life. He would always remember that. And it is, as I said, fitting that we now remember him. When someone dies, this is not a joyful occasion. But at the same time, we have every reason to celebrate his life. His life was rich. I've learned when I read his biographies put in place by his son, Burnett, and his grandchildren. I've learned so much that I did not know about him. I thought I knew him, that I knew him well. His life was really, it was rich before he ever came to Rome, and it has been rich throughout all of the service. So when he served as a mentor, he served and he served as a teacher, he served in many capacities. And whatever he did it in such a humble way that all of you who know him, you remember him, that he was never intrusive in our lives. And yet all of us remember him because our lives have been blessed. His counsel, his advice, his listening meant to us a lot. I don't want to turn this into my speaking, but I think the life that was lived up to almost mid-90s, almost 95, is a rich life. God has blessed him, and he has been blessing to many. I do also want to mention at this time also something else, and this is that his wife, Ramona, although many of us, I did personally see her, but many of us did not see her in person, very much behind him. If she was not understanding and encouraging him in what he was doing, maybe we would not have been blessed by him. She was with him, behind him, supportive wife, and she also passed away a month after Burnett passed. So although we are remembering now Burnett, we also at the same time want to remember this beautiful woman, this beautiful couple. I'm going to stop here. And what I really want to do is at this moment to share a short video with you. I hope that this is going to work. Some of us are learning how to use Zoom and all of this faculty that are kind of available here. I want to share with you a short video that actually was recorded with the help of Barbara, his daughter. And this was a part of his message that he sent to us who attended the Rome celebration, 20 years of Rome in Macedonia last year. And then after we have seen this video, I would like to invite some of the members of Burnett's family to be the first one to share something about Burnett. And then we want to open it to all of you to share. We'd like everyone to share. Probably we would have to be mindful about time because of this, because we do want to finish within a time like hour and 15 minutes. And that's the reason I think the time has come for me to stop talking now and see how this share screen works. Bear with me, and here we go with the video, I believe.
Greetings to the entire Rom community. I don't know how many people that would be, and it has been a part of my life, a part of the end of my life, as I have come to the time when I can't travel to Europe anymore, and I take with me the memories of so many of you. I wish I could name each one of you, but I can't even remember my own name sometimes. It is a marvelous memory to remember so many people over, what was it, 15 years. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for each one of you. Sorry I can't name you, but I do mean you. I have been invited to come back when my life doesn't warrant that kind of travel anymore. I've had a wonderful experience with Rom. When I think of the way I ended my life, it's quite amazing that I have had so many of you who I remember one email I got that said, "My dear, dear grandfather." Well, that goes a long way, and I am grateful. I find it almost unbelievable that I could have had these experiences at the end of my life. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to God, and I especially am grateful to Vesna and to Theodore.
So this was this short video, a part of a video that was intended and was shown at our 20 years anniversary of Rome in Macedonia last year. I would like at this moment to invite, I'm glad to see here that almost everyone that we have invited to come from Burnett's family is here with us. I don't know if we are missing anyone, but I just want to say one more thing. And this is that just as much as Burnett, cared about the young people of the Balkans, Southeast Europe, and wider, that he was encouraging to come to Rome and then walk with them, and was really investing himself into our lives. He also made sure that his grandchildren came to Rome. And I was going through the list today, and all 6 of grandchildren, and I hope I've not missed any one of them, have come to Rome at least once at some stage. And I'm glad to see most of you also here with us. And you are also invited to share in a minute or two. But at this moment, I would like to invite Barbara and Daniel and Kiera, because they were the first who told me that they would like to share something, to share a little bit from your perspective, from your experience about your father, your grandfather. And then we are giving the opportunity to all of us. Please indicate in the chat room, the rest of you, if you would like to share. This is how we would know that you would like to share something about Burnett, and we will recognize you shortly. Barbara, would you like to be the first one?
Well, thank you so much, Tirmir. Really, I and our family cannot thank you enough for having this time together. As you know, we have not been able to have our parents' funerals, and so this is even more meaningful to us to be able to be with all of you today. When I think about my parents, they were both born in 1926. They were sandwiched between World War I and World War II. They went through the Depression as children, and they were born in really small towns, farm communities, and they both worked from a really early age. So this was a pretty parochial, to put it mildly, upbringing, but full of sort of the joys and downside of small town living. So both my parents, I think, spent their life in awe of what their lives became. And the fact that they lived on Capitol Hill for 40 years was just amazing to both of them. But in particular for my dad, at the end of his life, which I shouldn't say the end, he was in his early 70s. I think he was probably 73 when he became part of the starting up of ROM. And he said many times that this was the most meaningful part of his life, that it came, and he was just so grateful that it came at the end of his life, this 20-year experience. I think ROM began maybe in 99, is that right? Or the first conversations, 99-ish, yeah. So he was just so enchanted by everyone there and felt so grateful to be a part of it. I remember visiting ROM once and just seeing firsthand how happy my father was, how peaceful and centered and full of joy. And we drank espresso down at the cafe at the bottom of the hill there. And it was just a very wonderful experience. As you probably know, both my parents taught Sunday school and Bible classes throughout their lives. And I wanted to let you know, at the end of their life, it was pretty complicated for all of us. And because of the pandemic, we were not allowed to be with them as their days grew short, which was not something I would wish on anyone. But my father, at the end of his life, told a chaplain that he was seeing his own father. And my thought there is that his dad came to be with him. I'm sorry, so that he wouldn't be alone, which is very tender and hopeful to me. And the same with my mother. I like to think that my dad went first to prepare a way for her. Both of them spent the last days and weeks of their lives in deep gratitude. My father talked a lot about going home. He said, I love this phrase. He said, let's assume we're floating to eternity. And my mother had started to say things like, I'm really enjoying my life here. She was completely bedridden and in one room and surrounded by strangers at that point. She said, I have my window and the door that people come through to help me. But I'm really starting to get curious about what comes next. And she was just ready to go too. So I'm grateful, as hard as it has been to lose both of them so close together. I'm grateful that she didn't linger in her loneliness, and they're together again. Thank you, Tirmir, and everyone at ROM.
Thank you, Barbara, very much. Who would like to be the next, Daniel or Kiera?
I suppose if we're going by age, I can go next. So it is odd, as Barbara said, when you're in a pandemic, this whole thing doesn't feel real. Like we heard through a phone and a text that this had happened because you can't see. So even now, it's sort of like, well, yeah, we're talking about my grandfather, but he's we'll go see him, next week or something. But it's very surreal. But in 2001, I was invited. I had never been out of the country prior to that, and my grandfather asked me. I said, "Hey, would you like to go to Croatia?" And I couldn't have pointed to Croatia on a map at the time, but he asked if I wanted to go, and he said it was 3 weeks. And if I didn't like it, though, I could leave after 2 weeks. And at the time, I think I was unemployed, which is another whole story, because he was the person I hung out with almost every day while I was unemployed for the better part of 2 years. But I said, well, I don't think I can afford it. And, of course, if you know Burnett, he would not, that's never an issue when it comes to him wanting to have you as part of something. And I think that's kind of what started me realizing the kind of person he was. And he taught me a lot about myself as well. So my first experience outside of the country was meeting all of you. And in 2001, well, not all of you, but in 2001, it was a lot fresher. Some of the history of the Balkans was much more fresh at that time. But the thing about my grandfather is he actually taught me that I'm an extrovert, and I think that's very strange. I'm still coming to grips with that. But I remember one day we had this conversation. He talked about, I told him, said, how do you deal with people all the time? Like I want to get away from people after maybe a couple hours. And he said, well, he talked about his social battery. He said, everybody has their social battery. And he said, I think I'm good for about 2 weeks before I need to recharge. And that just explained him in so many words, or so few words. And then anytime you'd go to a restaurant with him, the server, anybody he would meet, he'd get their name, he'd find out their life story, where were they going to school, what were their aspirations. And then I also remember he would always tip very high too. So it was sort of like this, he didn't just, take an interest, and he would put that. I guess my point is, my grandfather invested in everybody. And you heard him say he can't remember your names, but before he started losing bits of his memory, he could name every single one of you, and he could tell me, what country you were from, and what your scenario was, and what year you came to ROM, and all of this stuff. And so it's just, I think the thing that hopefully we can all take away from this, and that I'm trying to embody as well, is that idea that everybody is worth getting to know. And he did that in both his words and his actions. He would just, he didn't care. Huh? Sorry, so I have my 7-year-old here who doesn't want to be seen, but she's asking me questions. Yeah, and fortunately, both of my grandparents got to meet all of their 3 great grandchildren. Only one of them is here right now, but yeah, I didn't really have a much of a planned speech, but I just wanted to share that very human aspect of my grandfather is what I think most people remember, is just that he loved everyone and was just thrilled to meet and get to know everybody.
Thank you, Daniel. And you are right when you are saying that even in the later stage of your life, when the memory became weaker, he still somehow, it's amazing how mind prioritizes the things. He still, some of the things that were important to him was the Rom community. I know when we would occasionally talk over the telephone, it looked to me as if he was deliberately trying to bring some details into the story so that he would reassure me that he does really remember, He would bring some details that would clearly tell me, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, And that was very sweet, always, and it was very, very precious. Kiera, would you like to share something?
everybody. My name's Kira, and I'm looking at the gallery view at the moment. I do recognize some names and faces, so it's really nice to have everybody gathering here today. For me, it was a little bit more of a surprise and impromptu, but I'm really grateful that we're able to do this today. And thank you again to Tihomir for putting this event together. Like my Aunt Barbara mentioned, we haven't been able to get together as a family. We haven't been able to celebrate our family's lives, our grandparents' lives, parents' lives. And these are very difficult and strange times. So being able to get together in this fashion, as hard and emotional as it might be, I still think that it's really important, and I'm grateful. And I think that my grandfather, Burnett, would be just really happy and full of love for everyone here, because that was and is the kind of person that he is. And I feel like there's a lot that I could continue saying from what Barbara was saying, what Daniel was saying. I have so many beautiful memories of spending time with my grandfather and my grandparents, and similar to Daniel, my grandfather was the kind of the first person to bring me out of the country. I do have family in Canada and went there a few times as a kid, but I had a very similar experience where my grandfather said, "Hey, do you want to go to Croatia?" And I said, "Well, yeah, where is it?" And it's another similar story of traveling with my grandfather, having the ROM experience, where I was able to meet so many of you, and get to know my grandfather in a very different kind of way as a young adult, and get to see him in his light. And Tihomir mentioned that he learned so much in reading the Facebook tributes to my grandfather and grandparents, and so did I. I didn't know that he had been starting to go to ROM just at 73. I mean, that's impressive, and really says a lot about the kind of life that he lived, and how he spent that final portion, that the final 20 years or so of his life, and what you can do at any point in your life, especially in later years. I think we're all really impressed. Maybe even those who didn't get to personally meet him. But there are a few things that I did want to share. It's very easy to go off into tangents. And we all loved Burnett and from different perspectives, and at different levels. But I think generally we can all agree that he had a really big heart and loved everyone. He loved his family, he loved his friends, and ROM was definitely a part of his family. All the ROM community members were his friends, and his friends were his family. And for those who met him, most likely they had a lengthy conversation where he was asking those kinds of questions. What's your name? What are your aspirations? Where are you from? Let's continue this conversation, and I'm going to ask you about your goals and your dreams next time I see you. And that's, again, the the kind of person that he was, and very, very inspiring for sure. When I traveled with him the first time to ROM, that was in 2005. I just graduated from college, traveled over there actually with one of my other cousins, David, who may or may not be on this call, I'm not sure. And we met my Aunt Barbara there. It was an incredible trip. I learned so much, and I was only at ROM for a week as well, and it was still a very impressionable time. But the first thing that I noticed when we landed in Zagreb in Croatia was when we were greeted by our friend Taya, and I was so I don't know what the word is. I was so surprised that he had this close friend in Croatia that was welcoming us and greeting us with open arms and love. She was so excited to see my grandfather and to meet us. And that was just the beginning of the journey in spending time in Croatia and traveling to Fužine and meeting all of the ROM community members and making new friends. And in being there, just in that 1 week, I realized very quickly that even though my grandfather had, technically 6 grandchildren, it was quite clear that everyone was seen as his grandchild. And you hear at the end of the video that was put together where someone wrote him a letter or a message or an email saying to my dearest grandfather. I think that really speaks to the kinds of relationships that he intently developed with everyone, because he had that kind of love coming from his heart, and he appreciated all beings and recognized and could see and could hear their spirit. And that's why he could remember everyone that he met. And even later in life, maybe he couldn't necessarily remember their names, but I'm sure that he would be able to recognize their spirit. And that's something that will always stick with me. And I think for me personally, it was very impressionable. And traveling to ROM, having those kinds of experiences, getting to know him as a young adult, and getting to know many of you who are on this call, making new friends, that was something that I think is going to be staying with me. Like I said, made a big impression on the kind of person that I guess I've developed into in my own career and working with people, doing social work, working with kids and families with special needs. And I'm not sure if I would have gone in that direction if I hadn't have had that kind of experience. So that being said, I do very much love and miss my grandfather and my grandmother. And again, I'm very grateful that we can all gather here today virtually, which is not ideal, but I'd like to think that my grandfather is really pleased to see everybody gathering. So thank you.
Thank you, Kiera. I think this is now a good moment also to kind of widen our conversation. And I know that also Burnett, his son, will, and I will give him a moment to very shortly, but now I would like to hear also some of us from the ROM community join us together to also share some of your stories. I don't see in a chat room anyone recording anything, but I know that many of you would like to say something. So how are we going to go about this? Maybe whoever first speaks up will give him or her priority to speak at this moment. Who would like to be from the Rom community outside of the family circle now, the first one to share something?
I can definitely share something. Do I need to raise my hand or something like
Yeah, maybe that would Marta, please do.
I had heard Burnett's name before I had gone to Rom. So when I met him, he definitely lived up to his name, but he definitely impacted my life in a way with how I talk to people and work with people, because he had that love, like somebody shared, an interest and care for people. I had to tell you that I actually stole something from him, and that was his letter that if you've gone to Rom, you know that you get this letter or postcard that says, you know, you're coming to Rom, we're so happy to see you and have you there. And I remember reading one of his letters that he had written to the Rom mates, and it's like, wow, this is so much better than mine. It is so much more meaningful. And I think I need to go ahead and put a little bit more thought into this. And it's just, that was the type of man he was. He just so genuinely cared about people that it was just great to be in his presence. I had the opportunity at that reunion in Oakwood to spend some time with him, because I had stayed behind with him and a couple others, and we just had a lovely hour or so conversation of talking about what he was doing in Sunday school. He was teaching adult Sunday school, and he was talking about the zodiac and where you see Jesus in this. And it's just, he was always so fascinating. And I think, like all of us, we miss him dearly, but have been so touched by him. And we're so grateful that he was so part of Rom for so many years.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you. Who would like to be the next one?
I can go next if that's helpful.
Maybe. Yeah. So, all right. Speak up.
Yeah. Is there somebody else that would like to go first? That's
No. It's your time.
Thanks. Today's the first day that I've made the connection that it's not because of Rom that I know Burnett. Actually, I was associated with Rom at the beginning of Rom, and I was associated with Burnett, but it was not those two things that came together. And so today's the first day I've thought about this. I actually have known Burnett since 1978. I hate to say how old I am, but I knew him as a person who took care of young adults in helping to mentor them. And I had considered after college coming down to Washington and working there on the Hill for a little while. And I knew a few people, and everybody kept saying, but you need to go talk to Burnett Thompson. And I had several people who indicated that. And after a little while, I finally gave up and said, okay, I need to talk to Burnett. And as many of you who know Burnett, you always sat in a restaurant on Capitol Hill and just had conversation. And so I had a couple of conversations with him. And at that moment in my life, he was very helpful in helping me make the decision as to whether or not, because I was looking at a position with a senator, and we were at the juncture where I was going to come, and then I got another job with what I was trained to do, and he was very helpful in helping me process how I should do the journey. And so I chose not to go into the Hill, and I chose to teach. But Burnett remembered that I kind of liked the idea of understanding our system of government. And so he then invited me to come weekends and work at the Cedars, and again, over food often and over various kinds of scenarios. We had plenty of conversations. And so very early in my life, he touched my life very readily. And then he introduced me to Barbara, and I spent a summer with Barbara, and Barbara and I aren't quite sure how long ago, but again, it was very long ago. And each movement that I had with Burnett was a touch of a person who, as everybody has indicated, was a man who truly cared about people. He put the other first. He knew how to, and I loved, I don't know who talked about it, but this idea that he had a social battery. And that was very true of Burnett, that you knew he was fully alive when he was surrounded with people, sharing ideas, creating new thoughts, being together. So I truly, personally valued Burnett and his wife too, because we would run into each other as well. And so both of them touched me personally as I journeyed early in my life. And then later, when ROM began, I came to ROM via Vesna, and I went several times the first few years when Dražen was directing the program, and I became very close to Dražen. And I think twice ran into Burnett at the airport, and we didn't talk long. We didn't, and we kind of passed. It wasn't a function that we were actually at ROM together. But I remember him at one of those occasions when we had a brief little connection, him talking about the value of ROM to him at that point in his life. And I could tell that as he aged, he realized that the circle of his social battery had to get a little smaller, and that he couldn't be with everybody in the same way. And I know that he really chose ROM as one of those things that he wanted to keep an eye on. So I know he loved ROM, as many of us do, and he really made a difference in everybody's life. So for the family, some of you, I know Barbara, but some of you I have never personally met. I've heard your parents talk of you. My condolences to all of you. Your parents were wonderful people, and I truly had the privilege to, throughout my life, explore life with them and to grow together. So my condolences to all of you, and I love this idea that they are together, because the idea of the cloud of witnesses is true. And I think of that with Dražen, because I was worried I'd cry over Dražen today as well, because we've lost him as well. But all these people loved the Balkans, and their work is not done, and our work is not done, but we are not alone on the journey. So my best to all of you, and my deep condolences to the family.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue.
No, that's not Ronnie Cabrera. Can you change the name?
All right. We have some young participants, very young participants here too. That's good. Okay, now I would like to recognize Howard Frost. I know he would like to say something. You would like to say something. Please welcome.
Sure, Tim. Thanks very much. So, yeah, this is Howard Frost coming in from Washington, D.C. I thought it might be worthwhile to share some thoughts in following Sue, because my story is is almost exactly them. It was almost exactly the same as Sue's. So Sue and I had known one another in a Bible study in Boston, and we had come down to D.C. From Boston just some years from one another. Sue, I think you mentioned it was in the late late 70s, and I came into to DC actually from living in Europe when I was doing my postdoctoral work. And my meeting with Burnett was therefore in the early 90s. So my tie with Burnett was through the prayer breakfast. My involvement with the prayer breakfast it has been with Germany, but also with the Slavic countries. And so I was job hunting after coming back from Germany in the early 90s. And like Sue said, all my prayer breakfast friends were saying, well, if you're involved in international relations, you have to go meet Burnett. So I did. And I think that, when people die, the part of the value in discussions like these is to talk about what you remember of that person, and what sort of model the person set. I think from my time with Burnett, my times with Burnett, his sense of hospitality, that a gift that he really had strongly, and a sense of a really deep humility. I mean, Sue and other people have talked about Burnett wanting to put other people first, and that from the years that I've known Burnett, that was a consistent value that Burnett had, and one that I want to try to emulate in my own life. And I think that the third thing, apart from the sense of hospitality and humility, was his sense of reaching out to internationals to share the word of the Lord. So when I had met Burnett in the early 90s, Burnett was thoroughly involved in this regular work with Greece and Turkey. So he would travel back and forth to those countries, working on reconciliation issues and friendship evangelism and that sort of stuff. And he was committed to it. So he was doing this. I mean, Sue might know better than I do. He was probably at least 20 years by the time I met him in the 90s, going back and forth to Greece and Turkey, and trying to help share about Jesus and work on reconciliation and those sort of things. So I think that's that aspect of Burnett's life and his commitment was something that is valuable for me. So I've been to I've been to ROM, and I have lots of friends in ROM. I have not been at ROM at the same time that Burnett has, so I missed that possibility. But through Burnett and I had met Vesna. I mean, I'd met Randy in the early 90s, but Vesna I met in the year or two right before she founded ROM, and so through knowing Vesna and Tiamir, it's been a great opportunity to meet ROM folks. I mean, I've run into ROM folks not only in the U.S. but in Croatia, but I've also run into them in Armenia, where I've been involved, and it's great to that ROM's influence has been so wide in that part of the world. So thanks for letting me share those thoughts, and I know that Burnett's commitment to hospitality, to humility, and to serving others in the international community is something that many of the people in this group share as well. So thanks once again.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Howard, very much for your thoughts. And now I'm seeing here in the chat room that a number of you are putting really beautiful comments and observations about Burnett. And I would like to hear some of them being spoken by you. So I'm creating quickly my own list, being aware of the time at the same time. And I would like us at this moment to follow the following list. Philip, I would like to say a few words. Nera, I would like you to say a few words. And then Burnett's son, I would like to hear you saying a few words. And then we will see what else we can also add up. But let's go in this order now. Philip, would you like to share?
Thank you very much, Tihomi. I actually had put my thoughts in the chat room, but I came to Rome, I think it was 2007, and I was privileged to meet Burnett among the facilitators. Of course, he definitely did spend time with every young person who was at the gathering, just like all the other speakers did. And the things that stuck out from our conversations the most is basically him asking me and telling me a lot about my own country, because he had friends who had been working in Uganda for some time. So he basically had a lot of information of what was actually happening in my own country. So it was actually nice to hear it from him. And as he shared, then we went on to talk about my aspirations. What is it that I am planning to do? And everything was really about me. And I remember him giving me an open invitation, just like he did to everyone, that come to DC. When you come to DC, give me a call and we'll have a conversation. If the conversation is good, I'll pay for the drinks. If it is not good, I guess he was saying I'm on my own. So I thought, and then I reflected back even now and thought, but all our conversations was actually about me. So if and I thought like his whole interest was about my own growth. And definitely, as many of the speakers have said, he was someone who was really keen on the development of the other person, on the growth of the other person, on what the aspirations of the other person is, which is challenging for us today. And there are very few of us who can actually not want to talk about ourselves, but want to listen and want to take in and guide what the other person is going through. I think that as many of the people have said, we will truly miss him. And listening and just reading the many things that people are saying about him, I am very, very challenged and privileged that I was actually able to meet him and get to know him. Thank you so much. And to the family, we are with you and we know how difficult it is, but God is the strength, and I'm sure his memories will always remain with us. Thank you so much. And thanks, Tiomi, as well.
Thank you, Philip. And just by the way, it's such a beautiful thing to realize that we are at this time united together, although coming from speaking from our homes in many countries. I don't having a time now, right now, to calculate how many. Maybe Gwen and Rachel can do this. But Philip, you are in Uganda now, of course. You're speaking from Uganda. And then we have here. That's a beauty of our family of Rome, that we are from so many places, and that we are even now together in a kind of artificial way, but genuine at the same time. Under the circumstances, the best we can do at this moment. Nera, would you like to say a few words?
Well, hello to everyone, and of course, first the condolences to the family and to, I guess, all of us that knew Burnett. I did not have any plan to say anything, but yeah, Philip reminded me of something that was kind of a very specific, a very simple sentence Burnett used to use, but it said quite a lot. And I had the same experience. So majority of us actually met at the same moment in Rome. I was at the same year when Philip was there and any of you. So that was the first moment I met Burnett, and he actually knew everything about me. So as Sue said, although I don't know her, she said that she was afraid she's going to cry over Dražen. Yeah, that's something that is one of my biggest fears. Like Dražen, Burnett, and many of other people are something that changed my life quite much and actually brought to everything that is happening now in my life. So a sentence was that he's going to pay for whatever, lunch, dinner, anything, a drink, whatever, if you are interesting enough. And being very young at that moment, and someone that, I mean, not old in the sense, but older and kind of someone that you respect, saying that you have to be interesting for him was like, oh my God, I was always afraid that I won't be, not because of the money, but because he would waste his time on listening to someone very young. It never happened. I'm not sure if I was interesting enough or that was just the sentence he would use, but he had so much life. He had so much of energy to give to all of us. And I think that's something that actually will stay with us, the same as Dražen, and the same with other people from Rome. So yeah, thank you, Tihomir, for this opportunity. Thank you, Rachel, actually, and Blair, because that's how I saw that something is happening related to Burnett. But it was a very honorable thing to know this man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nera. And I would like to give a word in a moment to Burnett's son, a professional musician, jazz musician, and author, who also I never met, but I actually have your CD. It's one of your CDs, which I think I got from Burnett a few years ago, because I myself, I like jazz music. And as I'm giving the word to you, I just have to say one thing about Burnett. One of those little things that kind of I didn't know about him, because he was not a man who would be pushing himself on people. He was really kind of very modest, very loving, and people loved to have him around, and you were always richer by being with him. But one day I remember there in Fujine, someone was sitting behind this electric piano playing, and lo and behold, it was Burnett playing. So then I realized he also have a history in himself of a music. I don't know to what extent, but whatever he was playing that moment, it was beautiful. This is one of those little vignettes from his life that kind of many of us wouldn't know, because he wouldn't come in public of every one of us and be playing, but he would find a moment that he would do that. Burnett, would you like to share a few words with us?
Hello, everybody. I'm just outside Washington, D.C., and really thrilled. Thank you, Tihomir. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, everybody, for attending. And thank you, Zelda, for coming. I had many lunches with Dad over the last few years, and he was always surprised when I asked him to pay for it, so I guess I was not really that interesting in the lunches. So I wound up having to pay for quite a few. I sent you a link to some words that kind of a biographical sketch of my father. It's on the chat room. And then also some words about my mother. So those will be the words. I thought I would just play something. Both my parents were really good musicians. My mother, even well into dementia, could sit down at the piano and play hymns, and Debussy, Clair de Lune, and the Rachmaninoff, you know, that prelude. And she was completely together. She couldn't remember that I had just visited her an hour ago, but she could sit down and play the piano. And my father could not read a note, but he knew all the hymns in any key. And he played a lot of Ellington, a lot of big band stuff that he learned while he was in high school. He learned everything by ear. So I actually have some recordings of them in the last couple of years that you would find quite amazing. So I thought I would just play a hymn here as my words, and you'll recognize it. There you have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Burnett. This really, in a wonderful way, spiced this gathering that we have here this time. I'm strolling through your comments, and I'm also to the list of people who have joined us. And I would really like, I hope it's not just too much of a surprise, but I see that Vesna Tift is here with us. I would really like to, and I see Randy, you are after the Vesna. Or maybe put it like this, I would invite you, Randy, to be first so that Vesna can prepare herself to share something. Randy, would you like to share a few words?
That'll teach me. I was waving to Vesna because she waved. So, but actually I was about to send you a message to say I'd love to say a few words. You know, I was trying to think how old I was when I was invited to ROM as one of the speakers and first met Burnett. And I want to say I was in my mid to late 40s. And I felt like he was a mentor to me. And I guess what I remember most about him, you've already brought up, and that was he had this genuine interest in who you are as a human being, and a genuine interest in somehow, usually just through his presence, this loving servant leader presence, this calming presence. He imparted a gift. And I think part of that was he called out the best in people. I certainly felt that way as I watched him work his magic at ROM, because he was such a mentor to so many. And I would look up and he'd be sitting clearly having another one of those very, nice deep conversations that several of you have brought up. So, and now that I'm in my mid 60s, it's kind of hard to believe. Can you believe we've gotten this much older, folks? I guess time flies. I'm thinking a lot about being at that stage of life that he was at about the time he first came to ROM, and thinking, I'm inspired again by your stories. Moving into this segment of life, I hope I can be like him. I would sure like to be more like him, and to continue to find a way to speak into the lives of others and to be a mentor the way he was. Thank you to Burnett's family. Thank you for sharing him with us. And thank you for letting us share this time with you. You're in my prayers I know you miss him. But thank you all, because you were a big part, I think, of who he was. And I appreciate getting to see some of you who were grandkids who were there at ROM at the same time I was. And with that, I'll turn it over to Vesna. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Randy. And now, Vesna, I think it would be a beautiful thing if we can hear you also sharing a little bit about Burnett.
Again, thank you, Tihomir, for organizing this. I'm very, very sorry that I couldn't join you from the beginning. But it is just so wonderful to see all your faces and to finally see Barbara, who I spoke with recently. And I'm so honored and so grateful for this opportunity. And what did Burnett mean to me? A world. I recently reflected on that. I met Burnett in Slovenia in April of 1996. There was a gathering of Eastern European Balkan leaders, right after Yugoslavia war. And Burnett was there, Doug Coe and the fellowship group, and Congressman Wolf and Tony Hall. And anyway, there were maybe a group of 100 people. But yeah, it was Burnett who introduced me to another lady from Greece, and we had a number of conversations, and that's where it started. And he, with another couple, arranged for me to come 6 months later to Washington, D.C. and volunteer at the National Prayer Breakfast. And during those 6 months, he introduced me to wonderful people here who are still close friends today, and like Sue Snyder, who is there nodding her head, a very dear friend. And it is just amazing when you think of people, how do you know each other? It's because Burnett Thompson introduced us. I don't know, there are so many memories, wonderful memories. They all bring smile to me. All these conversations I had with him were always light. There was humor and there was wisdom. And I really needed him, and as a mentor and a friend, and valued all those wonderful lunches. He liked the Greek restaurant at the Clarendon here nearby, and that's where we had conversation about Rome. And the first time he and I talked, and he expressed desire to be involved. And I don't know exactly what year that was, but 24 years is our friendship. So that's when he started coming and just being involved. I always marveled, as probably you all did, with the way how he knew people by name. All these complicated names from all kinds of countries, that he just knew everybody by name and remembered and cared. And it is just so rare. So many stories. When Randy and I were getting married, Burnett had the best advices. I still remember them, and they're funny, but they're very helpful. When we had our children, were young parents and came from Eastern Europe back to Washington, D.C., he and Ramona came, and Burnett took care of us and checking on us, and I had numerous lunches with him, and it was so much fun to have that kind of opportunity to talk about adult stuff. We talked about everything, doctors and politics and faith and whatever, and it was just always so much fun. I'm just so grateful, and I and just feel not deserving of somebody giving me such heart and time. So wonderful to see the son and the daughter. I hope I meet you in person too. I remember Daniel, I think it was the year, Daniel, when you came and when Dražen organized us to dig the dirt. Was that the year when you were there, Daniel? Yeah? Yeah, that was fun. That whole thing of how he started bringing his grandchildren. But I was there when you were there.
I think I still have a photo of that somewhere.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did not. Well, I can tell you one story that I remember well. I went to Gordon College after our first program in '99, and Dražen took over. And when I came back, I think I'm remembering this well, 2001, Dražen had to go to US in June, and we still didn't have participants, very few. And I wrote a message to Burnett and a few others asking, what shall we do? Shall we even have ROM if we only have, I think, 12 participants so far in June? What should we do? I mean, I think it was next day, the Burnett just jumped on and he brought all the Macedonians. He found all the funding. I mean, it was a blast, 2001, with how many participants he just suddenly, was able to organize and to find funding and for all of that. So just thank you.
Thank you, Vesna. And this has been true for Burnett for years and years that follow afterwards. Only the good Lord knows, and some of us, how many people he helped to come to Rome in different ways, who otherwise probably would not have been able to come, and neither have been we able to help them come. And Burnett was there. He stepped in and he made it possible. He really had on his heart the young people from the Balkans or Southeast Europe, but he also had young people on his heart from different other countries that kind of enriched the scope of the participation at Rome, because in addition to what we call Balkans, we had people coming from Turkey, from Cyprus, even from Iraq, and from Armenia, places, and in some of the instances, he was instrumental in actually making it possible for them to come. So he has been at multiple levels a blessing to many of us. Thank you, Vesna. I'm being mindful of the time, and I do want to respect our time, but I also still want to leave a room open for someone who has something on your heart that you would like to share. I know that Bojan and Mihajca is also would like to share, so I'm going to recognize you very shortly. But while you are preparing your minds to share a few thoughts with us, I would like to share something with you, because something that I found rediscovered recently. I just want to open my share screen, and share a couple of minutes of one of his lectures and presentations. It took me maybe 2 or 3 years of knowing him before I realized that he was also a wonderful and sharp speaker, and that he has something to say, not just as a mentor and counselor in small groups and so on, but standing in front of the whole body there. At that time, I didn't know that he was also in the past a minister. You know, when I hear about this, that he was used to be a minister, then kind of things explain themselves. But let me share with you a couple of minutes. I hope it's going to work. A couple of minutes. And here we go.
Many people want the right of opinion without the discomfort, the hard work of thought. I've had serious conversations lately with a young friend, trying to convince her that you really don't have an opinion, you get your facts in order. So you work on the facts first, and then you form your opinion. There are many, and probably most, create their opinions on the basis of their preconceived ideas rather than taking the time to examine the facts. My assignment is really to encourage you to build and strengthen a solid intellectual foundation. That's what I would like to do. You can tell me later how well I did. On that kind of foundation, you can examine morality, you can examine your calling, you can examine your place in society, and do it in a way that ultimately makes sense. By the time you finish here, 10 days from now or so, you may have changed some of your thinking. You may have added to your thinking. Anthony Cordell said that God created the universe. Is that true? Protagoras said man is the measure of all things. Is that true? Stephen Gould, a noted anthropologist at Harvard, said that evolution is a fact. Is that true? Carl Sagan, a very popular astronomer in the United States, said the cosmos is all there is, or ever was, or ever will be. Is that true? Both Stephen Gould and Carl Sagan, incidentally, have come to believe very strongly in God, because they both died a couple of years ago. And takes time. There was an early Jewish writer who said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Is that true? The essence of what we need to think about here, and I want to encourage you, strongly encourage you, to think, as perhaps you already do, analytically. Think beyond the words. People say ridiculous things, and sometimes they sound great. If somebody says, deal with one here, there are no absolutes. What's the problem with that? We had, for a couple of years, we had a discussion group in our home. We lived on Capitol Hill in Washington, and I had conversations with a lot of people. We told some of our young friends, come over on Tuesday night. 7:30 to 9:30, we'll be home. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about. We did that for a couple of years. We had as few as one, as many as 50. And one night, we didn't talk about anything they wanted to. One night, a friend of mine, he said, well, he wanted to develop a chance system. Well, of course, it's chance and not system, but I let him get away with that. And he said, first of all, I'm a total relativist. I said, no, you're not. It's total, it's not relative. We didn't get away with anything. I didn't get away with anything. And I wasn't going to let him get away with anything. He said, well, by that I mean, I don't think you can know anything. He said, I can't know anything. I said, well, I have an advantage over you because I know that if I went out a 20th floor window, I would go down. He said, you don't really know that. I said, whoops, you don't know whether I do or not because you don't know anything, right? It's the sophomore games. I said, besides, I'm an old man, be kind to me. Because in my head, I really think that if I went out a 20th floor window, I'd go down. Now with you, if you went out a 20th floor window, you don't know whether you go up, down, sideways, blossom into a rose, disintegrate. Anything is possible. And he said, well, yeah, theoretically. I said, okay, I know why I don't go out the 20th floor window. What I don't understand is why don't you go out the 20th floor window? Finally, somebody said, well, Burnett, he talks his rules, but he lives by yours. Well, of course, they're not my rules. But that's the kind of thing that I hear over and over again, to think analytically, think logically.
Okay, I just wanted to share with you a little portion of one of Burnett's presentations. This actually was recorded in 2007. And the other day, as I was going through my old archives, they go even further than that. Then I found this recording and I thought, what a beautiful presentation and what a kind of relevant for today. But that's another subject. Let's go back to Burnett and sharing about him. This was just a little spice to whatever we are doing at this moment. Mihaitsa, maybe you would like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Tihomir. And I salute everybody. Actually, I think that the fact that Burnett joined Rome, and because of him and some other people like Stevo, like you, Tihomir, like Dražan, and or like Vesna, we have this feeling of family when we are thinking about Rome. It's not only a project. It's not only, like a training and so on. Mom, come. Some of you know my mom because with my dad and my mom, we've been also in at the reunion near Novi Sad. I don't remember when. But what I wanted to share is this story that some of you might remember. I was part of the staff of Rome in 1 year, 2002, maybe 2003. Anyway, the thing is that we had in the group one particular person that was really difficult to handle, very difficult. And of course, the first day passed, the second, the third. And then we all gathered to talk. What do we do about this situation? And I remember that we were like 10 or 12 or 15 of us in the staff, and of course it was we could all talk and share what should we do, and except Burnett, everybody, all of us, we said, let's get him out because he's ruining the whole spirit of Rome. And that's the moment when Burnett was like, no, we shouldn't do this. I mean, this is the exact person that needs the most of our help, and if we believe in anything, coming here to Rome, it's about finding ways to help and to work with this kind of people, not people that already have the spirit, let's say. And it was a complete silence for like 1 minute afterwards, because we all then reconsidered our reasons why we say no, we should kick out this person. And it was a very valuable lesson. And I have a lot of stories with Burnett, and it was tough to hear that he left us, but he will continue through all this, through all of us, and how he touched us. It's unbelievable how close we feel him. I feel him, and from the stories I heard, everybody is feeling him. So I'm so grateful. I had the privilege to know a person like him, and through him and other people, as I said, to have this sense of family, even if we are from so many countries, so many cultures, and so on. So. Thanks, Tihomir, for letting me share this, and salute from my parents, from my dad, and from my mom.
Thank you, Mr. and greetings to your family, to your parents. I remember very well when they were in Fujine, and when we were building this, how do you call it? Yeah, this was in long time ago. Thank you very much. I know that probably inspiration is coming now, and so many more of you would like to share something, but at the same time, we need to be respectful of your time. And I will at this time recognize two more people and one very young participant here. I've just found a message, and I think her name is Zelda. She would like to share something with us. And Boyan, then I would like you to share immediately after that. And then after your message, we will be bringing our celebration of Burnett's life to conclusion for today. Zelda, please, it's your time.
So I actually was, I think I'm one of the grandchildren, I think, of them. One of both of them, of both of the people who died, and I sometimes whenever I hear sometimes I just go to my room, I think about them, and they were very old, and I knew that they were going to probably stay alive for about probably 1 month more, or a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they died. And so now I just now sometimes I go into my room and I think about them, and I write about them and all the things that they were very nice, but they were also old, and sometimes we would go to visit them, and I would see one of them maybe cough a little bit or sneeze because they were old and they were in a nursing home. And when they're old and sick, they'll cough or sneeze because they're old. And old people will cough or sneeze if they're old and sick.
Okay, Zelda, this is your message, a beautiful one. And it is a wonderful thing to know that, that now you can see as a great grandchild that you see how your great-grandparents have a big, big family across the world of people who love them very much and miss them very much, and to whom they mean a lot, just as much as they mean to you. That was a beautiful message. And now I'm going to Boyan. And just, by the way, I'd just like to share with you who are maybe with us for the first time that as we are having this beautiful meeting on Zoom this Friday, it was thanks to Boyan and Rachel that we have been having those similar, with different themes and topics, meetings every Friday from the time that this COVID crisis started. I think a custom that has been created, a good one, and that will continue on. And many of you have thanked me for this opportunity, and I'm really thrilled and impressed. But I also want to give a credit to those two beautiful young people, still young, comparing with me, because we are doing this because they are behind this very much. And Rome is in good hands, I can tell you this, especially those of you who are maybe with us for the first time after a long time, have not been with us since the change came. I enjoyed leading Rome for what? Many, many years. I grew old leading Rome, succeeding it after Dražen and Vesna. But now it's time for young generation. And what I'm seeing with those two beautiful people, what they are doing, I'm confident. I know Rome has a future. God has planned with Rome. They are doing a fine work. Boyan, please.
Well, thank you very much for all the compliments, but really, I just inherited from many of you who've been directors and leaders of Rome. So I will keep it short, not because I don't have what to say about Burnett. There are so many things to say, but because of the time constraints, and I don't want to repeat the same things you guys said, but they do repeat because he was treating everyone equally. And I was laughing, whoever was the second or the third who said that Burnett tricked them with the question, with the thing for the lunch. They said if the story is interesting, you know, I'll pay for the lunch. If not, then you'll pay it. You know, and I was laughing now, but I was sweating back in that Greek restaurant in DC when he said that to me. I was thinking like, oh no, I don't have much money. Am I going really to pay for the lunch? You know, and you know, but he was super cool. Say hi, Mila. This is Mila, and she really wants some attention because she hasn't seen me a whole day. But the one short thing, like I would always think, you know, where's Burnett, you know, and then you just see this yellow hat with the red line, you know, just walking from uphill in Fujine, and you know here he is coming, like elderly man, but he doesn't give up. He goes to rest a little bit, and then he comes over, you know. And I would always try to give more time and chances to other people to talk more with him, because I thought, like, you know, I'm seeing him here for so many years every summer. But then once I really loved his talk, so I was like, I'll join him for a lunch, you know, and I'll talk to him, you know. And Marco was with us, and Nate Ashery, and myself, obviously, with Burnett, you know. So we sat and we talked, obviously, about his great talk and the stuff. And I wanted to impress him how much I liked it, you know. So I tried to quote the sentence from his talk. And then Nate Ashery said, oh, Boyan, I think you misquoted him. But Burnett quickly cut it, and he said, wait. For someone at my age it's better to be misquoted even than not be quoted at all, you know? And I found it funny at the same time, and so humble, you know, and so nice and so dear, like the man with such a knowledge and rich history and so many friends that he shared it. So yeah, I mean, I take all the best from him, and deepest and sincere condolences to the family, and nice seeing you all.
Thank you, Boyan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this beautiful gathering, beautiful reunion. Thank you for all of you who have come and joined us maybe for the first time after a while. That's understandable. There have been a number of generations by now cross the way of Rome. It's beautiful to see you. And thank you for this beautiful time. It's hard to know how to complete all of this in a really beautiful and meaningful way. But I think you, all of you who have been sharing, you have said it so well that here we are talking about a man who had a big heart, a man who was a true servant leader, a man who loved everyone that he met and came across, and that hundreds and hundreds of young lives have been impacted in a number of blessed and good ways by Burnett's influence. So this is who we are talking about. Definitely Rome is richer by the fact that we had Burnett with us for so many years. So I would like to say again, thank you to the family that you have joined us. Sincere condolences on behalf of all of us from the Rome team to all of you. And I would like to say thank you again to all of you Romeites. We have this saying that once Romate, always Romate. That sometimes some of us harass you with the emails, you know, it doesn't matter whether you were part of Rome 15 years ago or whether 2 years ago. Once Romate, always Romate. Thank you for joining us. For me, that was a beautiful time to hear all of the stories. And with this, I am now giving everything to the hands of Rachel and Boyan to give us the final words that we need to know today.